I just got back from rock climbing, so I'm a bit messy. Excuse the mess. Bless this mess. Today, we're gonna be talking about things that you can do instead of scrolling on your phone. I need this list too because I literally fell down a rabbit hole like 3 days ago where I was just swiping and swiping and swiping, and I fell into this really weird rabbit hole on TikTok. But I just lost hours of time. Like I lost like 2 or 3 hours in the middle of my day. And I was like, and I felt bad afterwards. You never scroll and then feel good afterwards if you've just been doom scrolling. You never finish and go, wow, I needed that. I really needed that. Weirdly enough, right now, an internet trend is analog. So we're going to be talking about things that you can do off of your phone. I know that if you're watching this, I'm probably talking to you on your phone. But as soon as you finish this, go try these things. So these are things that you can do instead of scrolling. Some of these are spring and summer specific to take advantage of this time of year. I made a little list for myself. Oh my God, I didn't introduce myself. I'm so rude. I'm also new to YouTube. So, hi, my name is Jenny. Welcome to my curious little corner of the internet. If you're one of my few subscribers, welcome back. Look at, oh no, that's from the marker. But I was gonna say, look at the calluses on my hands. I'm a new rock climber and baby's getting her first calluses. Enough stalling, time to get into the list. So the first thing I put is reading. Reading is one of my biggest hobbies. If you're not a reader, you can literally start with any genre. I used to think that I wasn't someone who liked reading, but it's usually that I just didn't like reading things that were assigned to me in school. But you have free will. Utilize it. You can read whatever you want. The thing that got me into reading as an adult was the Percy Jackson series. You can read whatever you want. If you're someone who's already a reader, I'd recommend trying something outside of your usual genre. So recently I've started reading poetry books, which is completely outside of the usual genre that I read. I read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy books. But recently I think I've read like 3 poetry books. I like to go through and tab my favorite ones. I think this is just like a really nice, peaceful thing to do, reading poetry, because it's so like a single poem can be like 1 page. And it's just, you can spend 2 minutes reading, you can spend 2 hours reading, you can spend your whole day reading, and trust me, I have. I don't recommend that either. I think the key to balance and happiness in life is moderation. I struggle with it, but it's moderation. The second thing, painting. Now, if you have paints and you want to go outside, maybe lay out a picnic blanket, go have fun, I recommend that. I also have paint markers. That motorcycle driving by sounded like a fart. I have paint markers. I really recommend paint acrylic markers because there's none of the cleanup, but I still get to have all of the fun. If you're interested in oils and different kinds of mediums with paint, you're not gonna get the same experience from a marker. But if you're someone who just wants to like have a good time and make silly little things, I can't recommend it enough because you get a lot of the creative license without a lot of the cleanup. Also, for all of these things that I'm recommending, I know a lot of new hobbies do require you to buy something if you don't already have it. I would recommend starting with the hobbies where you already have materials. If you don't have materials, definitely check out, friends, family, buy nothing groups on Facebook. And if you do really decide, hey, I want to try this out and you don't have materials, I always suggest trying to support a small business near you. So if you have like a local craft store, or if you have a thrift store somewhere, Goodwill has tons of stuff. So for some of these hobbies, it would be easy to go to like a thrift store. For some where you're looking for something really specific like acrylic markers, I'd recommend supporting a small business in your area. Because Michael's and Amazon and all that stuff, they don't need your money. They're doing just fine. The next thing on my list is research. So I know that sounds vague, but I know tons of people who have just like this niche area of interest where they do tons of research. So maybe it's anthropologically, you're really interested in like Egyptian pharaohs. I think there is nothing cooler than just having a small pocket of information, like a small wealth of info on a specific topic, And then if someone around you mentions it, you just get like activated like a sleeper cell agent. Mine is dinosaurs. I watch YouTube videos about it. I listen to podcasts about it. And it's at the point where if someone brings up dinosaurs to me, I kind of feel like almost like a mini expert. And that's such a fun feeling. You can take notes like you're in school. Nobody is stopping you. It just feels very fulfilling. And it's also a great way to keep your brain sharp, especially for those of us who aren't in school anymore. I think researching something that you're interested in your free time and just exploring a passion of yours, it's super rewarding. The next thing that I suggest is scrapbooking. I brought mine here. This is just show and tell. This is show and tell for me. So I go between junk journaling and like more true scrapbooking. So like pictures. Sometimes I also will like make lists. So when it was January, I made lists of some of my favorite shows, just little treasures I find along the way in life. Here's my favorites of 2025. I put my top song, my top artist, some of my favorite books of the year, with my favorite, The Night and the Moth. Rachel Gillig is a queen who can do no wrong. Any little pieces like a visitor pass, a doodle someone made of me, stickers, any like flyers that you get from a place or any piece of paper. I just like to save things. I've been having a lot of fun getting more artistic and stylized with scrapbooking. It's a great way to like make sure you're keeping track of all the fun things that you do. It also encourages you to do more fun things. That way you have cool stuff to put in your scrapbook. So it's good encouragement in a way. Next thing that I'm gonna suggest is crossword puzzles. This is another thing to help keep your brain sharp, maybe undo some of the damage that doom scrolling and brain rot has done to all of us, literally all of us. None of us are untouched. New York Times has digital crosswords, but you can buy in a store, usually at like a front counter somewhere, they have mini crosswords if you want to be completely off technology. There's tons of printed crosswords. You can also find them at thrift stores, tons of blank crossword books. Things also like word searches, puzzles, all that stuff, just to keep the brain juices flowing. I personally love crosswords. Crocheting and knitting. I've been crocheting for a few years on and off. I've even done craft markets and things like that. So I've crocheted plushies, I've crocheted sweaters, hats. I've crocheted everything, sweetie. And it's such a easy hobby to enter, in my personal opinion. Everybody has a different experience with crocheting. You can find a ball of yarn at almost any thrift store. And also crochet hooks are very cheap, easy to find. Almost every town has a yarn store too, which I love. But once again, I recommend, like with any hobby, you start small. Don't buy everything having to do with a hobby before you know if you really like it and are gonna stick with it for the long haul. I think a lot of these analog lists that we're getting really silently encourage consumerism. So like, hey, try out this hobby, buy this 80-pack of markers off of Amazon to fill out another coloring book off of Amazon. So what I would suggest for any and all of these hobbies, utilize any existing materials you have. Go to thrift stores and small businesses if you are going to buy something. But once again, check in with your friends, your family, see what materials already exist. Check out your Facebook Buy Nothing groups, check out Facebook Marketplace. There's tons of ways to do these hobbies in a more affordable way and in a more sustainable way. Now, I'm not saying I'm a perfect consumer. I'm definitely not at all. But I do try whenever possible to buy things either secondhand or from a small business or handmade things. I also suck at knitting. So I brought the knitting project that I have in the works. As you can see, it is a straight line. You might be thinking, Jenny, what's it gonna be? Wouldn't I like to know? I started this so long ago. I know, so long ago, and it's this much. And I can't remember what I wanted it to be when I started. Now, my next thing, and I know this isn't accessible to everybody, including me, gardening. If you live in a house, which in the year of our Lord 2026, how? But if you do, and you have any patch of dirt outside, if you have a balcony, if you have a well-lit kitchen, you can do some level of gardening, whether that's an herb plant or whether outside you're able to grow your own tomatoes, maybe your own flowers. We have a ton of really good vegetables and fruits coming up for the summer. So if you have any amount of dirt available to you, you can grow a plant. I love getting my hands dirty. There is nothing less online than having your hands in the dirt, than having dirt under your fingernails after a tough day's work. I went to a tulip farm recently, and you dig up the tulips, you reach into the ground, and they like want you to get the bulb out because they compost their bulbs. So you get in there, and those bulbs are 6 inches deep. I'm not gonna say anything. Those bulbs are far down there. And I just loved the feeling of being in dirt. I'm a dirty girl. I'm a dirty girl. No. And after I said the 6 inches thing, oh God. On to the next thing I have listed is hiking. So if you have a trail near you, which even if you're someone who lives in a more urban area, there's probably a trail somewhere near you. Of course, there's safety precautions to take into place and into consideration. I am a young woman, so I don't like hiking at night. A lot of people aren't comfortable hiking alone. If you do hike alone, I'd always suggest make sure you look up any sort of self-defense tips. Never be unequipped out in the world. Things like bear spray, pepper spray, tasers, make sure you use any and all responsibly. I know this is supposed to be like a things to do instead of scrolling fun, haha, good times video. But remember, women, your body is a weapon. Don't be afraid to use it. So hiking, I definitely suggest. And it's just another thing that's like completely the opposite of scrolling on your phone, is just walking around, looking at nature, being in nature. You can, of course, listen to music while you're going on hikes. And if you're taking a long hike, maybe you listen to music for half of your hike. But I definitely suggest just listening to the sounds of nature, of birds, of little rustlings, and also, once again, to have your wits about you if you're someone who's walking by yourself and you have safety as a concern. Snail mail. I wrote a letter to somebody recently. I wrote 2 letters actually. One to my friend, and I just gave it to her in person, and one to my sister who lives in Boston, so I mailed it. And when I tell you, penning a letter, I felt like Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. I felt like I had a quill, like a feather quill that I was writing with, even though it was glitter pens. There's just something so fun and personal and special about writing a letter for somebody. Really have a good time with it. I used colorful pens. I put stickers in it. I printed out a picture to send to her, and I put a couple stickers in there for her to use. I just had such a good time writing the letter. I think it's a fun way to be connected with people. I had a pen pal when I was young, and it just made me think of that, how we would mail each other stuff, how joyful that was. It's such a fun, personal way of connecting with somebody. If somebody lives far away from you, or if someone lives nearby and you could drop it off in their mailbox, I honestly cannot recommend it enough. Next thing is stretching. So that could look like maybe you do full-blown yoga or Pilates. I personally don't. I do maybe 1 or 2 poses every once in a while, but I think just stretching, getting able to touch your toes if you can't. Maybe you want to go all the way with it, learn how to do a split. That's a fun party trick, and we'll talk about party tricks later. I think stretching, being flexible, being comfortable in your body, I think it's just something we don't do enough. I used to do it a lot more when I was younger and I was in gymnastics, and I've gotten a lot more into physical activities recently, and it's made me realize that I am not flexible. I can barely touch my toes, and it hurts. It hoits, okay? I am not touching my toes like palms on the ground. I'm like skimming my toes. So stretching. If you have a yoga mat, Or if you don't, this is just something you can do in your home. This is free, but also if you're able to do it outside, if you have a yard or a balcony, I have neither, but if you like, go to a public park or a beach when it's either early or kind of late, that way it's not super crowded, this is something you can also do outside. The next thing I have is volunteering. Let's say you have extra time on your hands, and that's part of why you get into these sort of doom scrolling habits. I would look into volunteer opportunities near you. Not only are these really self-fulfilling, but they help you be connected with your community. If you're someone who, let's say you're a little shy, you don't know if you want exactly to be working with people, you can volunteer with animals, you can volunteer at shelters, you can volunteer if you are someone who's comfortable speaking to people and interacting with people that you don't really know. Food banks are always taking volunteers. I just definitely recommend volunteering in your area. It's a great way to support your community, to feel connected to it. The enemy of depression and isolation is community. I really cannot stress that enough. Another thing I would suggest is baking or cooking. I am not a good cook, and I'm not a good baker. I'm not a good baker, candlestick maker, but it is fun. The cleanup's not always fun, and I will be the first to admit that. But if you don't mind a little bit of cleanup, baking something or cooking something with your own two hands and then eating it. And if you want to take that up a level, going to a farmer's market and then using the stuff you just got to cook or bake, it's just such a fun experience. Even if it doesn't turn out perfect, I think that's a lot of the fun of making stuff at home, is you can tailor the recipes over time. They turn out little imperfections, but they can also be personalized. You can customize a recipe. You can build your own recipe from scratch if you have some comfort and knowledge in the kitchen. Even if you're not comfortable, let's say, baking something, you could make your own cocktail. Or I don't drink, so you could make your own matcha latte. You could make your own coffees. You could make your own teas. I started making my own tea blends recently. Just having fun in the kitchen overall. Next thing on my list is learn a party trick. Who doesn't want to be the person who pulls out a cool party trick when you're around friends? I have a couple party tricks. I can do approximately 2 magic tricks, and I can juggle. Not well, but I can juggle. Look into a niche, weird skill that you want to learn how to do. Not only is it fun to just have this repertoire of skills at your availability, not only does it make you feel like you're a cool, interesting, well-rounded person, but it's also a great way to spend your time. I don't think learning a skill is ever impractical. Even something like juggling. Because you know what? It's a great conversation starter. If I happen to see 3 beanbags anywhere in the world, I will pick them up and start juggling. And you know what happens every time? Someone goes, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I didn't know you could juggle." Or, "Oh my gosh, I want to learn how to juggle. Oh my gosh, I knew how to do that when I was a kid." All that kind of stuff. I don't think any skill is impractical. So learn a party trick. For me, it's juggling and magic tricks. Figure out what it might be for you, but those are good places to start. Another learning one, learn another language. A lot of countries are inherently multilingual. A lot of people in Europe or in Asia grow up speaking multiple languages. If you're someone who lives in the United States like me, it's not as common if you grew up in an English-speaking household to learn multiple languages. And it's something that I think is not only considerate to people to try and learn another language, because if you come across somebody who, let's see, speaks Spanish or French or Chinese, you just happen to have this touch point of speaking the same language as somebody else. It's such an amazing way to feel connected to a different person or to a culture that's not your own. It also is just like super practical. For me, I work at a college and a lot of families speak other languages. And I have developed I'm gonna sneeze. Whew. I have developed a very basic understanding of Spanish because of this, but I really wish that I was one of those counselors who could wear the button that says, "I speak Spanish, feel free to talk to me." So that's something that I definitely want to spend more time doing. I'm one of those people who's constantly on and off Duolingo. Duolingo and I are like a 7-year situationship, and they certainly treat me like one. They'll text me at like 1 a.m., they're like, do you still even think of me? Or like, did we mean anything to you? And I'm like, can they do this? Is this, what kind of marketing tactic is this? Anyways, if you guys have Duolingo, you know what I'm talking about. That owl. Anyways, there's tons of great ways to learn languages. There's different apps, there's books. My partner is learning Mandarin Chinese right now. He started watching shows in other languages and reading the subtitles both in Mandarin Chinese and in English. So there's tons of ways to get more familiar and comfortable with a language. One of the biggest ways is speaking it. So if you know anyone in your immediate life who speaks that language, try being like, hey, do you mind if I, every once in a while, try integrating it into our conversations just so I can get practice? If they're not comfortable with it, obviously don't do it. But if they are, experience is the best way to actually get comfortable with a language. I've learned the most about Spanish from conversations that I've had with coworkers and from just in everyday life. The next thing I'm going to suggest is start a collection. Where is it? I have in this little baggie I crocheted, there's a little frog pin on it. I have a rock collection. I know, I just keep getting cooler and cooler. I grew up with a coin collection and a rock collection, and I think collecting something is so fun. Whether it's stamps, rocks, coins, maybe you collect stuffed animals. I kind of accidentally am collecting those as well. Maybe you collect first editions of books. That's an expensive one. I wouldn't recommend starting out with that collection. Look at that one. Focus on my rock. Shiny. I used to split rocks open in my backyard when I was a kid. Focus on my rocks. And that's another thing where, let's say you start a collection. Let's say, like me, you start collecting rocks. That's also something then that you can learn about. Maybe you get into geology and you learn about minerals and rocks. Let's say you're somebody who's kind of spiritual and you're interested in crystals. You could learn about that. I've never really been a crystal kid. I've always been more of just a standard rock kid looking in my backyard. I like that one because it looks like a tooth. Oh, I just touched my actual tooth and I didn't care for the way that felt. So, start a collection. And as you can see, this is an intersection of multiple hobbies for me. I crocheted a little drawstring bag. You know, it's nothing incredible, but it serves its purposes. I added little beads to the end because I also make jewelry sometimes. I make beaded bracelets a lot. So there's a lot of ways where your hobbies can kind of intersect with each other. The next two things I'm going to recommend are very biased based off of things that I've picked up personally recently. The first one is horseback riding, and the second one is rock climbing. Over the past few weeks, I have begun both of these things. Now I know these aren't accessible to everybody because those are both pretty active, but if that is something that is available to you, I definitely recommend giving them a shot. I've had such a good time doing these two things. First with horseback riding. Let me tell you, my lower body is getting the workout of its life. You have to squeeze the horse to indicate, hey, I want to go forward. I'm doing Western style riding. So instead of giving the horse a kick, you give the horse a squeeze. Now, these are huge animals. So for them to really register that, you gotta kind of be strong. You gotta dig your heels in there. And the woman was telling me when I was getting this lesson, she was like, you can go harder. And I was like, no, I can't actually. I do not have the strength, so I cannot. And she was like, all right, well, you're gonna build up those muscles. And I was like, I tell you what, I'm sure as hell gonna try. That's also just a really great way to strengthen your body. I would love to be jacked, and I'm obviously almost right there. So that's why rock climbing has also been great, because I'm getting both an upper and lower body workout. If you're not someone who loves going to the gym, but you wanna be active, definitely look into like different kinds of physical activities you can do to keep your body moving. They're so much fun. The next thing I'd suggest is make music. Now, I know you might be thinking, Jenny, I'm not a musician. What are you talking about? If you don't have any instruments, you can use GarageBand. You can use your voice. You can write lyrics. I have an electric keyboard. I sometimes will write music on there. I have a ukulele. There's tons of entry-level ways to make music. It's also a great skill to learn. So if you, let's say, have an instrument but have never learned how to play it, pick it up, give it a shot. You know, if you meet someone out in the real world and they're like, oh yeah, I actually like play the harmonica or something like that. Aren't you immediately like, damn, that person's sick? You could be that person. You could be the sick person. The next thing I'm going to recommend is check out a thrift store. So I know I said earlier, let's not go crazy for consumerism. I do understand that a lot of people have shopping as a hobby. If you're like, I really want to go out shopping, or let's say you need something, let's say you're furnishing your apartment. Let's say, you grew out of your old clothes, for me, my body is always changing. So a lot of times the clothes that I used to wear just don't fit me anymore. So if I need to get new clothes, I try to thrift them all. Now, I'm not saying, hey, go out there and spend all your money. I understand that's also not accessible to everybody. We don't all have deep pockets. But if you're someone who likes to shop and that is already a hobby you have, maybe try reforming it a little bit into thrifting instead. It's a little bit more budget friendly, and it's also a little bit more sustainable, environmentally friendly. The last two I put are very specific to spring and summer. The first one is go out and pick wildflowers. Like I said earlier, I went to a tulip farm to build a bouquet. A lot of people are doing stuff like that, but there are so many beautiful wildflowers just out and around. If there is a place where there's overgrown weeds at a corner in your street, if you do end up going on a hike and something like that, there are so many beautiful wildflowers that are growing this time of year. Make your own little mini bouquet, make a flower crown, go pick the wildflowers, press one to remember this time of year. I think wildflowers are just so beautiful and magical and whimsical. The last thing I said is go to a farmer's market or a flea market. They're really common this time of year, and especially going through to the summer. There is just something so awesome about walking around with your little tote bag, buying fresh produce, buying from like small businesses, so like local baking companies, local farms. A lot of people will sell handmade goods there. And as someone who I can attest from being a former vendor myself, I worked a lot of craft fairs as a vendor. Your patronage to them, you just visiting their booth, means so much to them. And it's also just such a wonderful experience for the person who's going there as well to shop around. Go to a farmer's market. That's the last thing that I have on this little list to do. Thumbnail photo. Let's see if I actually use that. That is the list of things that I recommend doing instead of scrolling. So if you enjoyed this little video, please like, comment, subscribe. If you hated it, don't tell me. If you hate me and hate everything I stand for, let's fight. Thank you for watching this all the way through. Once again, like, comment, subscribe, means a lot to me. I'm just starting out this channel and I'm pretty new. So if you also have any advice for me as a new YouTuber, please feel free to comment that as well. Have a great day. Stay curious, my friends. Are you still on your phone? Get off. Go enjoy nature.